Hello and welcome. So in this video, we want to look at WordPress backup. More specifically, we want to look at 5 things. First, we want to talk about or discuss briefly the difference between backing up your site and migrating your site. It can cause confusion. Second, we want to look at 4 or 5 trusted providers for WordPress backups. We'll then look at a 4-part framework that we call C.A.R.E, C-A-R-E, of how you might choose one of those providers. And then lastly, we'll look at choosing one of those providers. Spoiler alert, we'll choose UpdraftPlus. And then we're going to go ahead and use UpdraftPlus on our website to back up our site for the first time. So if that's interesting to you, let's get started. All right, so the first thing we want to look up is the difference between backup versus migration WordPress. And the way I like to think about it, let's see if we can find any of these good examples. But sort of, we'll go back to wordpress.org and choose this one. The way I think about it is backing up your site is you back up an existing version of your site so that if your site goes down, you can have an exact replica of that site on your domain. So if we're doing it for splativity.com and our site goes down, we have a backup for splativity.com, and splativity.com is restored through that backup on our website. Now, if we had splativity.com and we wanted to move it to like splativity2.com or splativity.org, we could do that with a migration tool. So the way I think of it is a backup tool is essentially the way that you back up your existing site for your current domain. And then a migration tool is how you move that site that you have, in our case, splativity.com, to another website like splativity.org. So it can be a little bit confusing. It took me some time to figure out the difference or really get it in my brain, but that's sort of the basic part. Next, we wanted to talk about different tools that you can use. Now, there's a variety of ways to choose any service or plugin, but ones that come to top of mind are like Wordpress, which I believe is part of the Jetpack backup service, which is made by Automatic, Matt as in Matthew, one of the co-founders of WordPress. And Automatic comes, I think, with Jetpack, and it's a great tool. Next, we have the idea of Backup Buddy, which is also a pretty reputable service. We have the idea of the service called Duplicator, which started out as a migration service and it now also offers backup. Amazing. And lastly, we have UpdraftPlus, which we've used in our professional work as freelance web developers. So the way that I sort of think about it, particularly when you're first getting started, is the C.A.R.E framework, C-A.R.E. C stands for cost, which some of these services can be relatively expensive, particularly if you don't have a way to monetize your site. Second, I think about the idea of availability. So most of these services now all offer cloud service, meaning that it's connected to the cloud and you can access it anywhere. But another way to back up your site is with an external hard drive, which works too, but if your external hard drive burns in a fire with your computer, then maybe your site is dead. Who knows? Next is the idea of reliability. There are a bunch of providers, some free, some premium, some cost a lot, some cost a little. But if your backup doesn't work or it's not reliable, it's almost worse than having no backup at all, in my humble opinion. Next, the idea is ease. Some of these sites are a little more user-friendly for beginners, and I think that's an important consideration when getting off to your first or second site. So with all of this considered, the C.A.R.E framework, cost, availability, reliability, and ease, we often choose UpdraftPlus. UpdraftPlus has 2 offerings. They have a free offering, which we love, and a premium offering, which has additional features. So you could watch this little video. You can see all of the different organizations or many of the different organizations that use it. It allows you to back up your site, to do it automatically, and to restore your site. And then if you buy the premium version, which is here, you get additional features like site migration, as well as you can do a lot of additional cool things. So it's worth considering if you're interested, but for us, we're just going to do the regular version of UpdraftPlus. In order to do that, we're going to go to splativity.com. And when we're at splativity.com, we'll go to our dashboard. Now, as in many services or tools that you might use with WordPress, you can go and you can find them in plugins. So we're going to go to the plugin section in our dashboard, and then we're going to go to add new. And then when we're here, we're going to go to this search bar up in the upper right hand side, and we're going to go and look for Updraft, which sometimes we can't spell properly. Once the pages load, you're going to look for a plugin, which should be titled something to the effect of UpdraftPlus Word Backup Plugin. It should have something like 3 million active installs, several thousand reviews, and it's unclear when it will have been updated at the time of you watching this. But if you don't already have it installed, you would go to Install Now. Once it's installed, you can then click Activate. And once the plugin is activated, you should get a confirmation message here, as well as if you scroll down, you'll then see UpdraftPlus as one of your plugins. Now, what I like to do is I like to then go to Settings, which you can get to here, or you can scroll down and you can go to Settings here, and you can scroll over to UpdraftPlus. So we're going to click this button and then go to the UpdraftPlus setting page. And once we're here, you'll see this type of web page. Now, there are a few items that'll draw your attention to. First is this series of menus here. So you have Backup Restore, Migrate Clone, Settings, Advanced Tools, and Premium Extensions. We'll go to the settings in a little bit, but you can do your first backup, or you can find the log message, or if you had existing backups, you can do that. What I like to do is I like to first go to Settings, and then you'll see that there's a couple of different options. So there's file backups and database backups. Essentially what you want to do is, in most cases, you want to set this to automatic, and you can set the time. So you could have it back up daily, weekly, monthly, so on and so forth. So we'll do, say, a weekly backup. And often what I choose is I'll have the same time frame for my file backup schedule as well as my database schedule. So I'll set this to weekly. And then what I like to do is, if I have the space, I like to have probably something like 10 backups. So these two, in most cases, will match. And then what you can do is you can choose your remote storage type of service that you want to use. And a lot of times what I do is I'll just link it to my Google Drive. But if you preferred Amazon S3 or something like Dropbox, or if you're using the UpdraftPlus Vault, you could do that. And then what you want to scroll down and do is, you can't really change the file name or the folder name here if you are using the free version, which we want to use. And then you can show what you want it to include. So plugins, themes, uploads, as well as your database. And so I generally will leave all of these checked. Then you can scroll down and you can choose whether or not you want to have your site admin emailed every time that there is a backup. You can either check this or leave it blank. And then you go to Save Changes. Once the changes are saved, for most remote storage systems, you'll then have to give them authentication or authorization to do this backup. So if you're using Google Drive like me, you would click this link. And once you click the link, you would choose one of these services, and let's back it up under Splotivity. So this one here. This is a little bit of a frightening message the first time you read it, but essentially it's saying it can have read and write access, meaning it can add and delete files. I'm going to choose to allow it. If you choose to not allow it, then it won't be able to back up on your cloud service. So we click this button, Complete Setup, and it should be good to go. Now, what I like to do once I've connected my backup to my cloud service is I like to make my first backup manually. So you can hit Backup Now, and then you can choose which of these you want to leave checked and which you want to have unchecked. I just generally leave the default settings. And then this can take a bit of time depending on how large your site is, how fast your internet connection is, so on and so forth. But it should be done in anywhere to a few minutes to 10 minutes. And then you should get a message that your backup has finished running, and you can close out of it if it doesn't automatically do that. And then when you scroll down, you should be able to see that your existing backups now have at least one backup, whereas before it was 0. So if you wanted to verify this manually, you could go to your drive. And once you log into your drive, you should see a new folder created. And that folder will be called UpdraftPlus. So if you go into that, you can then see these different items, and I believe we could see a different view. So it backed up your database, it backed up other files, it backed up your plugins, it backed up your themes and your uploads, which is exactly what we wanted. Now, as long as everything's configured properly, what will happen is every week, once a week, it will back up my database as well as all of my additional files and themes. And if you ever want to change that, you could go to Settings again, and you could change this from weekly to daily or weekly to monthly, so on and so forth. And then you can also change the number of backups that you store on your cloud storage. All right, so I hope this was useful to you. If you have questions or comments, please leave them in the comments section. In our next video, we're going to look at how to erase our WordPress website, and then we'll be ready to actually use one of our backups. So join us for that, and we'll see you again soon. Cheers.